Not know his name, but you will almost certainly have come across Jonathan Ive's work, from trendy offices to Sex and the City. His designs are everywhere. They're cutting-edge, sought-after must-haves. Ive, a British designer working in America, transformed computers from boring beige boxes into colourful, almost sculptural pieces for Apple. He went on to create the cult iPod music player. Our arts correspondent, Nicholas Glass, was granted a rare interview with the man hailed as the king of design.
It was one of the objects of desire at Christmas. White headphones attached to a slim, polished, expensive and highly covetable digital music machine. The iPod has an expanding cult following, selling at the rate of 200,000 a month. Like everything else from Apple recently, it was designed by a team led by a gifted young Englishman that some regard as the company's saviour.
An incredible, I think, sort of thrill and satisfaction seeing, when you're on the plane, seeing somebody with those sort of telltale white headphones going up from their iPod, or using a PowerBook, and it's great.
Jonathan Ive was born in London 37 years ago. He joined Apple in California in 1992. Shy, intense, highly focused, he's very rarely interviewed. But here is an English designer whose work and aesthetic have quietly percolated into the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. We met at Apple headquarters at Cupertino near San Francisco. The company guards its research and development very jealously. We were admitted to a boardroom for the interview, but were not allowed to film anywhere else on campus. Ive was first introduced to Apple as a consumer. As a student, he tried a Mac, one of the old beige boxes.
I think innovating and trying to do new stuff was actually in Apple's DNA, and clearly, I think I first realised that when I used, the first time I used a Mac.
Was there an absolutely revelatory moment? You actually sat in front of this computer and you thought...
Oh, absolutely. I remember it very, very clearly. I remember thinking, it was, there was nobody there to help me. And I would never, ever, ever sort of look at an instruction book. And I could just use the product straight away. It was a really profound moment. I don't think I've ever had actually quite the same sense of wow, with a product before.
Ive made his name by designing the first iMac computer in 1998. It's the translucent gumdrop colours that help set this computer apart. I've consulted with experts in the confectionery industry, and his team experimented with various plastics.
A lot of people at that point in time were nervous around computers, around technology. So a clear goal was, how we could make make the product accessible and not intimidating, how we could make it just so simple to use. We were playing a lot with just the degrees of opacity, and we found that the different colours seemed to work particularly well with certain degrees of opacity. I think there hadn't been much experimentation with materials and finishes actually for a long time.
The latest iMac, which came out in 2002, is an altogether different sculptural shape. It's been likened to an angle-poised lamp, but a greater inspiration was found in the garden.
One of the points of reference for us was the sunflower or flowers, in terms of just the way in which there is a connection made between a plane and essentially a stalk. We had decided where the respective components were actually going to be, and so we had a base where we were aware that the actual computer and drives and so on would be. And we wanted to have the display be as simple and as pure and as uncluttered as possible. And then the challenge was actually a fairly sort of pragmatic challenge around, well, how do we connect those two components of the system? The actual neck basically is made from stainless steel. Some parts that are forged and then actually machined and then polished. Some parts are actually pressed. There's all sorts of laser welding. So just the neck alone is really an engineering feat.
Apple has a relatively small share of the computer market, 3 to 5%, but the brand has an absolutely fanatical following.
I think just hundreds of thousands of people deserve products are the result of people taking care. And I think that...
Do you think they don't sometimes?
As in the designers taking care, the development teams taking care. No, I think we are surrounded by multiple products that really testify to companies who don't really care.
Naturally, Jonathan Ive is a consumer of his own products. His hand-picked design team is part of a larger collaboration between manufacturing, mechanical, engineering and software teams. He won't talk about the reported premature failure of some iPod batteries.
I obsessively use an iPod. Yeah, I use. I have an iPod and a 17-inch PowerBook that I use all the time, and I travel with all the time.
Okay. As a journalist, I'm obliged to ask the question about the battery. You know, given it's raised some concerns, not back in the UK, about its longevity.
Actually, I'm not going to talk about the battery stuff.
You're not allowed to.
Probably not allowed to. Yeah.
Okay.
iPods cost up to £400. Apple has given reassurances that batteries can be replaced for about £80 each. The cheaper mini iPod is to be launched in the States later this month and in Britain in April. The demanding Apple public will have questions about it, as they do about every product.
People have tapped me on the shoulder and told me what they think of it.
What do they say?
Normally, there'll be. I mean, sometimes there are suggestions for what we could do better, and again, that goes back to what I was talking about. You know, the fantastic customers. I think
They really tell you that?
Oh, absolutely. No, there's no reticence around areas for improvement. I think we know when we finish the design. I think you're constantly haunted by: is it good enough? Is there any way we could have made it better? And I love that tenacity that we share as a design team and at Apple. I think they're constant, they're sort of incessant sort of pushing to see how could we make it better.
Since 1998, when he was made head of design, Jonathan Ive has helped resurrect Apple's fortunes. He always talks about we, not I. For the team, it's clearly about passion and ideas, but it's also about sheer hard work. Ive reportedly puts in a 70-hour week.
Nicholas Glass in California. Our main headline tonight: the CIA director George Tenet has said his analysts never said the threat from Saddam Hussein was imminent.